Experience life in medieval Europe. 24 hours during the Pneumonic plague. This is not a story about kings. This is not a story about knights, castles, or the glittering illusions we attach to the medieval world. This is something far more difficult to face and far more necessary to understand. What if you woke up one morning and realized the world around you had already begun to quietly disappear? What if the air itself had become the enemy, invisible, odorless, moving freely through every window, every crack in every stone wall, through the breath of every person you trusted? What if the most dangerous place you could be was standing next to the people you loved most? What if everything you believed about safety, community, and the protection of walls and rooftops turned out to be precisely what trapped you? What if a single day, just 24 hours, could reveal more about what it means to be human than an entire lifetime lived in comfort? These are not rhetorical games. These are the actual questions that every person living in 14th century Europe faced the moment they understood what was arriving. And by the time most of them understood it, the arrival had already happened. This documentary will not give you facts and figures and then leave you alone with them. It will walk you through a single day, from the moment before dawn breaks over a medieval English town to the hour when the last candle inside that town is either extinguished or left. Burning through the night, you will feel the cold of the stone floors. You will smell the market before you see it. You will hear the rhythm of a world trying desperately to hold itself together while something enormous and silent presses against it from every direction. And by the end of this journey, you will understand not just what happened in those years. You will understand something about fragility, about community, about the architecture of civilization itself that you cannot learn any other way. The year is somewhere between 1348 and 1351. The location is a mid-sized market town in England, the kind of place with a central square, a parish church tall enough to be seen from the surrounding fields, a tannery near the river, an inn where travelers arrive and rarely speak too much about where they came from. There are perhaps 2,000 people here. Not all of them will survive this year. Several of them will not survive this week. And on this particular morning, before the sun has fully risen above the eastern hills, you are one of them. You don't know yet what is coming. That is the first thing to understand. The people who lived through the plague years, those who survived and those who did not wake up each morning with a clear picture of what was happening to their world. Knowledge moved slowly, slower than the illness itself. Word traveled by foot, by horse, by merchant's mouth, by rumor passed between hands at a marketplace. By the time you heard that a nearby village had been struck, the cause was already inside your walls. Stand at the edge of the morning with them. Feel the cold. The hour before dawn in a medieval English town is a particular kind of silence. It is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of held breath. Animals in their pens shifting their weight, the slow creak of a timber-framed building responding to the drop in temperature before sunrise, the distant sound of the river moving over stones at the edge of town. You are lying on a straw mattress on a raised wooden frame, inside a single-room home shared with your family. The walls are wattle and daub, a lattice of woven branches packed with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung, then plastered and whitewashed. They hold the warmth reasonably well by night, but by this hour the cold has crept back in through every imperfection. Your bedding is rough wool, heavy, slightly damp from the air. Your breath makes small clouds in the dark. The floor below you is hard-packed earth covered in rushes, dried grasses mixed with herbs like rosemary and mint, which were placed there partly for hygiene and partly to cover the smell of everything that comes with close quarters, animals brought inside for warmth, and a household that has no running water. The rushes absorb spills, catch debris, and are replaced when they become too warm, which in a poor household might be far less frequently than recommended. There is a hearth in the center of the room. The fire has burned down to embers, and the smoke rises toward a hole in the thatched roof above. There is no chimney in the modern sense, just an opening that draws smoke upward when the air pressure is right and pushes it back into the room when it is not. Your eyes are used to it. Your lungs have adapted. This is simply how air smells in here. Always slightly thick, always carrying the ghost of every fire that was ever lit in this space. You rise before your family. The day has demands that do not wait. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel, because what comes next in this journey goes deeper than any history lesson you have ever been offered, and every new documentary we release carries you further into the worlds that shaped ours. If you leave this channel now, you will miss what is coming. Hit subscribe and stay with us. Outside, the town is not yet fully awake, but it is beginning to stir. The baker rose an hour before you did. His fire has been burning since well before midnight. The massive stone oven inside his shop requires hours to reach the temperature needed to bake bread for an entire community. As you step out into the lane, you can already smell it. Hot grain, steam, the particular sweetness of a bread that has been made from a mixture of wheat and rye. Because pure wheat flour is expensive, and not every loaf made for daily sale is the same quality. The bread for the wealthy households has a finer crumb and a lighter crust. What you buy at this hour, still warm, wrapped in cloth, is dense and filling and slightly sour from the fermentation process used to leaven it. The lane outside your door is narrow, perhaps 8 feet across. The buildings on either side lean toward each other slightly as they rise, a consequence of the timber framing technique that allows upper stories to extend outward over the street, creating covered passages below and maximizing interior space above. The ground underfoot is a mixture of mud and gravel, rutted by cartwheels, pocked by hooves. There are ditches on either side meant to carry waste toward the river at the edge of town, but they are not particularly well maintained, and the smell tells you everything you need to know about how well that system functions in practice. You are already moving through a sensory landscape that a modern body would struggle to process. But for you on this morning, this is simply the world. This is what the world smells like, what it feels, like under your feet, what it sounds like as the town begins to wake. You have no comparison. You were born into this texture, and somewhere in this texture, in the air itself, in the particles suspended in the breath of the travelers who passed through yesterday, in the rats that move beneath the floorboards of the inn near the market square, something is already moving. You cannot see it. No one can see it. The germ theory of disease will not exist for another 500 years. What you have instead are theories of miasma, the belief that illness is carried in bad air, in the smell of rot, in the atmospheric disturbances that follow unusual celestial events. The physicians of your time are not ignorant people. They are doing their best with the explanatory systems available to them, but those systems are not equipped for what is here. This is the first profound fragility of your morning. Not the cold, not the hunger. The fact that the most important thing happening in your world right now is completely invisible to every framework of understanding available to you. Now walk with us through the market. By mid-morning, the central square is fully alive. This is the economic and social heart of the town, the place where everything converges. The market operates on designated days, and today is one of them. Stalls have been set up since before sunrise by vendors who traveled in from surrounding villages, some of them walking several hours through the dark to be here when the town wakes. They have brought eggs, live chickens, dried fish, early autumn vegetables, rough cloth, tallow candles, iron tools, leather goods, small medicines from the apothecary, and a dozen other things that constitute the material fabric of daily life at this level of medieval society. The noise is extraordinary. It is layered and rhythmic. The calls of vendors over the lower murmur of haggling, the crying of a child somewhere near the cloth stalls, the clatter of the blacksmith's hammer from the shop just off the square, the snorting of a horse tied to a post near the inn, the sharp crack of wooden cartwheels on the uneven ground as another delivery arrives at the far end. Above it all, intermittently, the bells of the parish church mark the hours in a system that orders the entire day. Not just worship, but labor, meals, commerce, and rest. You are buying, trading, and exchanging information simultaneously. This is not inefficiency. This is how information travels in a world without newspapers or written communication for most of the population. The market is the internet of the 14th century. It is where you learn that the miller's wife has been unwell for 3 days. It is where a wool trader from 2 towns east lowers his voice and tells the man beside you that he passed through a village, on his way here where 3 houses were shut up and the doors were marked. He does not say what the marks mean. He does not need to. Everyone in earshot already. Car knows. The conversation stops. A particular quality of silence enters the noise, and then because life continues and commerce continues and bread must be bought and children must be fed, the market noise rebuilds itself, slightly different now, slightly tighter, with an undercurrent that wasn't there before. You have just heard the first real piece of information that should change your behavior, and you have absolutely no infrastructure, medical, governmental, or social, fully capable of processing what it means and organizing a response at the speed required. Leave a comment right now saying, "I would not have known what to do," because the honest truth is that no one did, not really. And understanding that is the beginning of understanding everything that happened next. The bravest thing about the people who survived was not that they found the right answer. It was that they kept moving through the day, even when every answer available to them was incomplete. The middle of the day brings the heaviest labor. Depending on your position in this town's social hierarchy, and medieval English society is intensely hierarchical, organized by a web of obligations, rents, guild memberships, and inherited status, your afternoon work looks very different. If you are a craftsman, you are in your workshop. If you are a tradesperson, you are managing inventory and transactions. If you are one of the poorer residents of the town, you may be performing physical labor for one of the larger households or working a small plot of garden ground just outside the town walls. But let us follow the person with the greatest visibility into the town's internal workings on this particular day. The parish priest. He is not the wealthiest man in town, but he is among the most informed. He moves between households in a way that almost no one else does. He administers last rites, hears confessions, counsels the distressed, settles small disputes, keeps rough records of births and deaths, and carries within himself a map of the town's social and emotional interior that no other single person possesses. He knows which households have been visited by illness recently. He knows which families have not sent their children to the church school this week. He knows which doors he knocked on yesterday that no one answered. Walk with him through the afternoon streets. The lanes in the residential areas away from the market square are quieter now. Most people are at work or inside. The priest moves with a particular efficiency, not rushed but purposeful. He carries a small bag that contains oils for anointing, a breviary, and a piece of bread wrapped in cloth. The stones beneath his feet are unevenly set, some raised, some sunk, some loose, creating a surface that requires a particular kind of attention to navigate without stumbling. The walls of the houses he passes are close enough to touch from both sides. In several places, upper-story additions built over time have created near tunnels of space where the light barely reaches the ground even at midday. He stops at a door. He knocks. He waits longer than usual. The door opens. Inside, the air is different, heavier, warmer, with a medicinal smell underneath the usual domestic odors. Someone has been burning dried herbs, lavender perhaps, or tansy. These were common responses to illness, burning aromatic substances to neutralize the miasma believed to carry disease. They did not work in the way people believed they worked, but the smell of herbs burning near a sickbed meant that someone cared. It meant that resources had been directed toward this person, and sometimes, in the architecture of survival, caring visibly is itself a form of medicine. The sick person in the back room is an older man, perhaps 50, which is significantly old by the standards of this time and place. He has a fever, which the priest can assess simply by proximity and observation. He has a cough that comes in long, exhausting waves. He is propped up on pillows stuffed with feathers and rough cloth, his breathing labored, his face a color that says the body is working very hard at something it may not be able to sustain. The priest does not panic. This is important to understand. These people were not strangers to illness, to suffering, to the visible deterioration of the human body. Their relationship with mortality was more intimate and more present than ours, in ways that are almost incomprehensible from the outside. Children died frequently. Winter took people. Infections that we now treat in a single course of antibiotics could kill an otherwise healthy adult. The priest is doing what he always does. He is present. He is performing the rites of his role. He is providing the comfort available to him within his framework. But there is something in his expression, a controlled tightening around the eyes, a precision in the way he moves, that suggests this case is registering differently, because the wool trader's words from this morning are still inside him, and because he has now seen 3 cases like this in the last 4 days, and because the pattern is beginning to acquire a shape that his experience of ordinary winter illness does not explain. He leaves the house. He stands in the lane for a moment. The afternoon light is already beginning to angle lower. In late autumn, the days are short, and the quality of light changes noticeably from midday to mid-afternoon. The stone, walls of the surrounding buildings hold the cold in their surfaces. A cat crosses the lane 20 feet ahead, moving quickly and purposefully in the way that animals do when they sense something humans have not yet consciously registered. The priest begins to walk more quickly toward the church. He has a decision to make that has no good options attached to it. He has information that the town authorities need to hear. He has a community that, if word spreads incorrectly, could respond with panic that causes as much damage as the illness itself. He has people who are already sick and need care, and he has absolutely no ability to stop what appears to be moving through the air of this town with the same quiet certainty as the coming winter. Now is a good moment to ask yourself something. Think about the structures in your own life that you rely on to manage danger, the institutions, the systems, the people in positions of responsibility, and consider what it would mean if all of those structures were present. All of those people were genuinely doing their jobs, and the problem was simply larger and faster than anything the structures were designed for. That is medieval plague, not ignorance, not superstition entirely, but genuine structural mismatch between the scale of the threat and the scale of the response capacity. If this documentary is changing the way you think about history and about the present, give it a like right now. It takes 1 second and it means everything to us. Evening arrives with a particular weight in a town that has spent the day accumulating unspoken knowledge. The market has closed. Vendors have packed their remaining goods and begun the journey back to surrounding villages. The fires inside homes have been built up again against the dropping temperature. The parish church is lit by candles, and the low amber glow passes through the small, thick-glassed windows into the lane outside in wavering yellow patches. Inside the inn near the market square, there are perhaps a dozen travelers and locals gathered around trestle tables. The fire here is large and central, and the warmth it generates is enough to make the air feel almost thick by comparison with the cold outside. Ale is being served in ceramic mugs, ale not water, because the fermentation process makes it safer to drink than the water from most available sources, and because it provides calories and mild social lubrication in roughly equal measure. The conversation tonight has a different quality than usual. It is louder in some places, compensation for something, and almost completely silent in others. 2 men at the far end of a table are speaking in voices low enough that no one around them can catch more than fragments. A woman near the fire is telling a story about her grandmother, about a time before the current outbreak, about a village she grew up in that no longer exists. Not because of plague, because of normal medieval attrition, fire, migration, economic failure. But the story lands differently tonight. Disappearance is in the room. Share this documentary with someone who has never stopped to think about what ordinary life looked like in the centuries that built the world we inherited. Because what we are uncovering here is not ancient and irrelevant. It is the foundation beneath everything that exists today, and understanding it changes how you see the present. The night deepens. In the homes across the town, families are performing the rituals of closure, banking the fire carefully so it will survive until morning without burning through the fuel too quickly, checking on children, saying prayers that are not just religious formalities, but genuine expressions of a relationship with uncertainty, that these people maintain every single day of their lives. Medieval prayer is not medieval ignorance. It is medieval coping, the sophisticated emotional architecture of people who live in permanent proximity to forces they cannot control. In the house of the older man the priest visited this afternoon, the breathing has become more difficult. His family is awake. The candle is burning. Someone has gone to find the apothecary, who will bring what he has, which includes herbal preparations, some of which do offer genuine symptomatic relief, and some of which are based on theories that the next 6 centuries of medical science will largely discard. But the apothecary comes. He does not refuse to come. He puts himself at risk to come. And that matters. This is the human architecture that held the medieval world together through its worst moments. Not the systems, not the official responses, but the individual decisions made by ordinary people to show up for each other in the dark. Consider the density of what you have experienced in this single day. You have moved through spaces that were simultaneously intimate and exposed, homes that held families of 5 or 6 in a single room, streets that forced physical proximity between hundreds of people multiple times each day, a market that mixed travelers from a dozen different origins in a single square hour. You have felt the cold, smelled the baking bread and the drainage ditches, heard the market noise and the church bells, and the particular quality of silence that fell over a conversation when the word came. You have followed the priest through his afternoon, watched the dynamics of care and information and institutional limitation from inside the day itself. You have been at the inn when the night thickened with unspoken fear, and people chose loudness or silence as their coping mechanism. And now you are in the dark, in a room warmed by a fire that someone banked carefully, wrapped in rough wool, aware that the morning is coming and will bring whatever it brings. What does this day actually reveal? The first thing it reveals is the fundamental paradox at the center of medieval community life. The very structures that made survival possible, the density, the shared resources, the mutual dependence, the physical closeness, were precisely the structures that accelerated the spread of the illness. The market that fed the town also mixed populations from across the region in a single contained space. The inn that sheltered travelers also moved the illness along every road in every direction. The communal hearth, the shared well, the crowded church, every point of community strength was also a point of vulnerability. This is not irony. This is the fundamental architecture of how human civilization manages the tension between connection and risk. We build together because we must. We become vulnerable together because that is the price. The second thing it reveals is the speed of information versus the speed of events. The wool trader's news from this morning, whispered at the market, already hours old when he spoke it, described something that was already inside the town walls. The gap between when something begins and when the people affected by it understand what is happening is not a medieval problem. It is a permanent feature of how events and knowledge interact. The people of this town were not slower than us. The gap was simply larger than any available tool for closing it. The third thing, and perhaps the most important, is the question of what dignity looks like inside catastrophe. The priest who went to the sick man's house, the apothecary who came in the night, the woman at the inn who told a story about a village that disappeared, not to spread fear but to hold memory alive, the baker who rose before midnight to make sure the bread was there when the town woke. None of these people had a complete answer. None of them could stop what was coming, but each of them showed up within the specific role they occupied in the structure of their world and did what that role required. And in doing so, they maintained the fabric of the community for one more day. This is the revelation that outlasts the plague years. Not the statistics, not the percentage of population lost, though those numbers are staggering and should not be minimized. Not the political consequences, or the labor market shifts, or the long-term social restructuring that historians trace through the following centuries. The revelation is this: Human communities do not primarily survive because their systems are perfect. They survive because enough individuals, inside imperfect systems, continue to act with care, with craft, with responsibility toward the people around them, even when the scale of what they face is larger than any one person can process. The candle in the older man's room is still burning. The apothecary is still there. The priest will return in the morning. The baker's fire is already being lit for tomorrow's bread. The market will open again. The bells will ring the hours. The world will continue to be made and remade by the daily decisions of ordinary people, doing the best they can with what they have. The pneumonic plague killed between a third and half of Europe's population across its first major wave. In some regions, the losses were even more severe. Towns like the one you walked through today were sometimes reduced to shadows of themselves. Not empty, but changed in ways that would echo through generations. The labor shortage that followed restructured feudal obligations. The questioning of traditional explanations for the outbreak contributed slowly and unevenly to shifts in how Europeans thought about disease, authority, and the nature of divine order. The plague years were not just a catastrophe. They were a pressure system that forced changes that centuries of gradual reform had not accomplished. But here, at the end of this particular day, in this particular town, before those long-term consequences have crystallized, here, the world is still intact, still running, still breathing, still baking bread before dawn, and ringing bells and keeping candles lit through the night for people who need them. That is what you came here to see, not the collapse, the holding on. If you have made it this far through this journey, then you already know what kind of viewer you are. You are someone who wants more than the surface, someone who wants to feel the weight of the past, not just read about it, someone who understands that history is not a collection of dates and disasters. It is a continuous human effort made of specific mornings and specific choices and specific hands, reaching towards specific people in the dark. Subscribe to this channel right now, if you haven't already. Every documentary we make is built for exactly this kind of viewer. We are going to keep going deeper, keep finding the ordinary days inside the extraordinary events, keep walking through the markets and the lanes and the rooms where the real history happened. We do not want you to miss a single one. And if you watched this entire journey with us today, all the way from the cold before dawn to the candle burning through the night, leave a comment right now saying, "I watched until the end," because I want to know who you are. I want to know the people who stay for the whole story. You are the reason this channel exists, and every comment you leave tells me that what we are building together here is worth every hour it takes to make. If this documentary moved something in you, if it changed the way you see, those centuries, if it made you feel the weight of those days in a way you haven't felt before, give it a like. It is the simplest way to tell us that this kind of storytelling matters, and it matters to us more than you know. And if you know someone who has ever looked at the medieval world and seen only darkness and distance, share this with them. Because what we found today in those lanes, at that market, beside that sickbed, inside that inn, was not darkness. It was the same thing that exists in every period of human history when the pressure becomes almost unbearable. It was people doing what people do, holding on, showing up, keeping the fire. The candle is still burning. Tomorrow is already beginning, and the world that stands between us and that morning is built entirely from the choices of the people who lived through days exactly like this one.